And thank you particularly to Nick Dean, who put the first meeting here together a couple of years ago. My colleague, Peter Murphy, who's done an awful lot to bring this program together. Bob Makinson over there, all of us. I'm not only Australians for War Powers Reform, I'm part of the movement against AUKUS and war, which grew out of that early meeting. And it's terrific not to be in a very small, tiny group of fellow believers. We've got masses here today, and that's very encouraging. So let's keep the momentum going. I also want to follow Nick's example. I don't usually do acknowledgement of country because I think it's hypocritical for us to say once was, always will be Indigenous land. No, sorry, once was, we took it, and we're not giving it back. So let's be honest, and let's regret that respectfully to our Indigenous friends. Now, to the business of the day. I don't think I can match what you've just heard today. Splendid presentations, 3 and another to come. But if you only listen to the 2 major parties and the mainstream media, you will have heard, and Wellington seems to believe it, I can't agree with her, I hope I can't, that Australians as a whole think AUKUS is a terrific thing. Now, I think, and this group shows, that Australians don't necessarily all think that AUKUS is a terrific thing. Our media, our mainstream media do, and they put that across. But as we saw with the last election and the election before, what the mainstream media tell us we want and what we believe isn't necessarily what we do. And Australians make up their minds quietly by themselves without the columnists in the Australian and the Sydney Morning Herald knowing anything about it, which is what our electoral results show. So let's not give up on it. And while I share your concern, the concern of your Chinese Australian friends, I don't think we should judge what others think by what the media tell us we think. The letters to the Herald, I have to say, are almost 100% opposed to not only AUKUS, but to what's happening in Gaza and to what's happening in the United States as well. So, we can't tell. But growing numbers of Australians, in my view, think that AUKUS is not a good thing. We only have the opinion polls to go by because, of course, AUKUS was not mentioned as an election issue, either this time or the last time, because the governments of the day don't ask for public opinion on foreign affairs and defence matters. Those things are not discussed. They may be debated occasionally in the Parliament, but there is no vote. And so they keep it to themselves. They discuss it among themselves in the National Security Committee of Cabinet, and the rest of us are left to guess what they've decided. But the polling in June and July this year by the Australia Institute showed that less than half thought AUKUS would make Australia more safe, 20% thought it would make us less safe, and while 30% weren't sure, 66% wanted a review of the AUKUS agreement. And in the Guardian Australia's Essential poll in July, only 37% of Australians thought that AUKUS was a good thing, that would make Australia more secure, down from 45% last year, 2 years ago, while another 44% thought that it would make no difference at all, and 19% said it would make Australia less secure. So it's by no means a settled issue. What Americans and British people think about AUKUS is not reported, if indeed they think about it at all. The Starmer government in Britain inquired and found they liked it. The Trump administration is still inquiring. Australia, of course, has had no inquiry. That's something we should be pressing for, an inquiry into AUKUS. What's it good for? Which is my topic today. So let's think about the three countries one by one. First, the United States. What is AUKUS good for the United States? The US nuclear submarine industry in Newport News, Rhode Island and Groton, Connecticut, is lagging way behind targets and can't produce enough for America's own needs. Australia has subsidised it, first with 4.7 billion already, and with no reward. Then we've added 800, as well, as if it's petty cash. More to come. Australia is unlikely to see a leased Virginia-class sub before 2032, even if we want one. The Colby inquiry in the United States into AUKUS is, it seems, unlikely to recommend scrapping the whole deal, but it can certainly be expected to demand that Australia make higher advance payments. Q White thinks the cost will double. And to spend 3.5% now of our GDP on American weapons. Fortunately, Mr. Albanese has objected to that, at least for now. The Colby inquiry is likely to demand that US Operational Command of AUKUS assets in Australia will be in the hands of the United States. They'll talk about deterrence and peaceful strength and all of those things that we used to hear during the Vietnam War and again and again. But that means aggression, as it always has. It did in Vietnam, it did in Iraq, it does now. The Colby inquiry will talk about Australia and Japan doing more against China over Taiwan, while the US does less. Pentagon spokesman, that guy, Sean Parnell, recently wondered why the US would want to help Australia if we won't render assistance in a fight. So we have to fight. They can sit back and tell us how much we have to pay for it. Why? Because the US debt has blown out. Thanks to President Trump's international tariffs and his one big beautiful bill that cuts taxes for the richest Americans and leaves the poorest with nothing. And the spending of his predecessors on military stuff that nobody needs, while health, education, and welfare go down the drain, as they are doing here as well. Trump's economic policies increase the budget for US immigration and customs enforcement, that's ICE, from 3.5 billion to 48.5 billion. That's just to run ICE. Hiring 10,000 new employees for ICE as ICE agents and expanding daily detentions of American residents to 116,000 just since he's been in his administration. Trump proposes $1 trillion for military expenditure this year, an increase of 13%, even over what Biden had. Australia, meanwhile, is giving control of our rare earths to the United States. Nuclear waste from AUKUS is to be deposited in Australia on Indigenous land by an American company which cannot guarantee its safety. So Australia is subsidising all of that which America thinks AUKUS is good for. Okay, what does the United Kingdom think AUKUS is good for? The British nuclear submarine industry at Barrow-in-Furness is supposed to design and build the first nuclear-powered submarine for Australia, to be delivered in the 2040s by BAE Systems. BAE Air Defence Missile System ran the tests at the Woomera test range in the early 1950s, and BAE Systems was formed in 1999, expanding now into BAE Systems Australia. It's a sort of like colony by creeping stealth. AUKUS boats are, according to Crikey the other day, a political project to be built by a company with a long record of massive scandals, epic delays, manufacturing defects, propelled by a reactor that can't be built yet. I mean, that is what we are engaged in. The chances are very small that Australia will have a British SSN AUKUS submarine before 2050 at the earliest, if that's what we want. Okay, so quickly, I'll have to tell you what Australia wants. The US and UK can opt out of AUKUS within a year's notice at no cost, but Australia can't. That's good for Australia if what we want is a succession of well-paid jobs and investment for Australian former ministers and weapons companies. ADF people are already luxuriating in millions of dollars worth of trips and perks from AUKUS, and they will all have retired by the time the submarines are delivered, if they are. AUKUS also contains a secret clause about which Australians have been told nothing. Little more has been divulged about AUKUS Pillar 2, which is supposed to develop and deliver advanced defence capabilities in science, technology, industry, etc. The purpose of AUKUS, though, is none of that. It is to provoke and wage aggressive war. And war is good for the Murdoch media, which profits from running regular defence supplements. Albanese says the purpose of AUKUS is peace and security in our region. It is in fact a perfect starting point for an arms race in our region, where we're already seeing a coalition for war being formed by the US with Japan, South Korea, the Philippines and Australia. If the Prime Minister wants peace, and here I'm quoting Nick Dean again, he should prepare for peace. Yes. You've heard people say, if you want peace, prepare for war. What can we do? If we don't want any of this, what should we get out of our government? We should object to their pack of lies about weapons and intelligence, plans for war against China, disposal of nuclear waste, massive amounts they're spending. We should protest against Australia adopting the don't ask, don't tell formula for US nuclear weapons. Australia needs a clear answer about joining a war with China, and we should make it absolutely clear that we do not intend to support a war against our major trading partners. Absolutely absurd. If Americans want to fight a war with China over Taiwan or the South China Sea, with only the Philippines in the coalition, that's their business. And that is what the Prime Minister should have told President Xi in Beijing, maybe he did in private last week. It's what he needs to tell Trump when he eventually sees him. And the sooner the better. Thank you for listening.